Hello and welcome back to Models Do Interesting and Intelligent Things. I am your host, Payton George, and my co-host is here, Trin Kellan. Today, we are going to be talking about body image and health anxiety. So, nice to see you, Trin.
Nice to see you too, Peyton. I feel like I've been seeing you all day.
That's weird. I don't feel the same. She's barely there. No, I'm just kidding. I'm joking.
Oh, started off strong with a body joke.
Am I the problem?
Aren't we all? We're the problem and the solution.
So I feel like I struggle with body image and health anxiety to a mild extent. But it's definitely there, and it's definitely something I think about a lot. Perhaps health anxiety, though, for a long period of my life.
Really? Which is interesting. You've never really been sick.
No.
I don't even think you've really had any health complications, if I'm correct.
I've never had really any serious health complications, but I remember as a child being kind of like learning about different sicknesses, and I was a very healthy child. Like, I would hardly ever get like the cold or flu or anything, and even if everyone had it, I wouldn't be the one to get it. But I've always been really interested in science and biology and diseases, and to learn about so many things that can happen is really scary. And something also I look into is aging and how a lot of people want to treat it as a sickness, and people age at different rates, and that's always been kind of an anxiety of mine for some reason.
Aging has always been an anxiety of mine, but I don't think I really related it back to health that much. Health anxiety for me has been a very recent thing, as my health was declining very bad when I was suffering from anorexia nervosa pretty severely, and my hair started falling out. And
did you grow hair on like your back or arms?
I never grew excess hair like Lanugo. That never happened. But yeah, my hair started falling out, and a lot of times I would get like really like blue or purple hands.
Yeah.
And
dark eyes.
My eyes were really dark, and like, which happens to some people, but that had never happened to me before. And like, still I have the really swollen lymph nodes,
but a lot better.
Yeah. But I never had like thought, like, I had the thought of like, oh my gosh, like, what if I'm really sick? Like, what if I have like a really bad disease? Like, what if I have cancer? Until like, I think it was like less than a month ago, and it was Hank Green came out and said he had cancer, lymphoma, I think, and he said like his kind of telltale sign was like his swollen lymph nodes. And I just had this like good 10 minutes of just staring off into space, like literally having a panic attack of like, oh my gosh, like, I think like, what if I have cancer? What does that mean for me? And I just like ran through all these scenarios of like how is this gonna, like, what am I gonna need to do? Like, how's this gonna affect my life? How's this gonna affect my family? How's this gonna affect my finances? Like, what if I did die, like, at a young age? Like, would I be able to face death? And that was, like, the first ever time that I, like, seriously considered, like, what it would be like to be sick, or if I might be.
Yeah. It's very scary. And I don't know if you want to cut this out, and I don't know if you mind if I say this, but you also had all these symptoms, but another one that really started to worry me was you have this like sour smell about you and like everything. So
really,
yeah. And then I remember I looked it up, and I didn't want to tell you at the time because it was like so overpowering. I was like very worried, and I was afraid that like your organs were failing, and that was part of the sour smell.
And you looked it up, and what did it say?
It said something like that it could be like an organ like damaged, failing.
I
and
didn't
stuff.
know that. Yeah, I know you were.
Could you not smell it?
No, no, because I mean it's kind of.
You lose sense.
Well, if you always, I don't know why, but I think it's like if you always smell like something,
Right.
you kind of, yeah.
Yeah, you can't really like smell your own home until you've been away for a long
Right.
time. Yeah.
That's so scary.
It's like, and everyone like smelled it. Like all our family and stuff. And I was like, it was really worrisome. It wasn't for a long period of time. Like, I didn't like at fashion weeks and stuff. It wasn't until I think we got back from our second New York Fashion Week.
That was like my worst.
Yeah, and it got really bad. And then it was like this smell. I think we smelled it for like 2 weeks. And then finally you were just at such a low point that you said you needed to get better. And then eventually it started to teeter off.
I think you might have been right, though. I think it might have been an organ failing because, like, I was at such a low point, but, like, it wasn't, if, like, my body didn't start fighting me back, I don't know if I would have been like, I need help. Because it was like my body was fighting me back. Because I didn't feel hungry. Like, I forgot what the sensation of hunger was for, like, a year. And then, like, I was so ravenously hungry all the time. And I was just like, I just need... And it was just so draining and exhausting. I was like, I'm, like, gonna... I don't know if I can say this. I was like, I'm, like, gonna kill myself. Or, like, I need, like, help and, like, permission to eat. Because I'm just, like, that hungry. And, like, that's what forced me into it. It wasn't, like... like, I deserve to get better, and, like, I want to take my life back. It was, like, very, like a visceral, like, attack of my, like, own body being like, hey, like, this
like,
is
we're
it.
gonna shut down.
Yeah. That was...
We're
and
turning
like,
off now if you don't
yeah.
do something.
And I spoke to kind of, like, a mentor of mine who, like, also suffered with anorexia, and she I didn't tell her that, but she kind of had the same sentiment of, like, oh, like... my own body was kind of like knew it was at its breaking point, but like she's like, I pushed it further. And I was like, oh, I didn't. Like, I was, or I don't know, I guess it's like pretty relative though, because you kind of don't realize like how bad you are when you're like in it,
right?
Because I was like, well, I eat every day. I eat over, like, you know, more than I like, kind of like more than I thought I should. And like, kind of in your head, you kind of get it, like, well, people who are anorexic don't eat.
Yeah.
And I eat, you know?
Yeah.
So you kind of are like, I must... But this is, like, for anyone listening at home, and you're like, maybe I have an eating disorder, but, like, but it's not that bad. Like, it's... However bad you think you are, it is worse. You are worse than you think you are.
Yeah.
And no, you never will feel like I'm valid. I'm, like, bad enough to get help. Like, that'll never happen.
Right.
You have to just do it.
Wow.
Don't wait for a breaking point. Because it's not, it might not come. Ever.
Oh.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
How did that affect your body image while you were in this? Because you weren't always confident.
No. Here's the thing. Like, I felt safe. Like, I felt secure, but I wasn't, like... It kind of, like, gave me this, like... kind of like almost like revelation, because like my whole life I was just like, oh man, if I was just skinny, I would be confident. If I was just like skinny, I would, you know, love myself, and I would love my body, and then like, and I was like always, and then I felt good about my body for a while, like as I was losing weight, and then I like realized I was getting too skinny. But it was just, like, this fear of gaining weight, and then, like, never stopped. That, like, stopped me from, you know, just, like, maintaining, like, actually. But I remember being, like, my stomach was always very bloated. And I didn't care. Like, it wasn't about my body image. Like, because when I would, like, pin my, like, ideal body or, like, my body inspiration, it would always be, like, super small waist, super flat stomach. But then, like, when I was, like, very, very thin, but my stomach was always bloated, I was like, I don't care, because at least I'm skinny. Like, I didn't think, like, my body looked good, but I was just, like, this, like, security in it for some reason. But it wasn't about actually my body. And I was like, you hear people say that, and they're like, it's just your head. It's not actually your body that's the problem. But it's kind of hard to believe it until you see it.
Right.
But, yeah, my body image, I knew I was too skinny. I knew it wasn't attractive. But I didn't really care. Because I almost, like, kind of, like, was, like, whatever. Like, I kind of liked that. Because I was just kind of I just wanted, like, I didn't want to be looked at by men. And I didn't want to be, like, seen as, like, sexual. But it started to wear on me when people, like, I knew people were whispering about me, and it wasn't just, like, that I had lost weight. It was, like, and it was, like, when I started to become aware that, like, every person that saw me, like, knew that I was, like, anorexic.
Yeah.
Like, every, like, passerby, like, that, like, started to, like, affect me really negatively. And even before that, I was, like, insecure about my arms being too skinny. Even now, I'm insecure about my arms being too skinny, which is weird. I never thought that'd happen. But for you, have you felt, like, insecure both ways? Because I definitely have. Like, I felt too skinny and, like, too fat.
Yeah, I actually have. I remember being pretty small, probably, like, before our first New York Fashion Week. And when you eventually get to, like, you don't have enough meat or anything on your bones, that, like, your shape kind of, like, you kind of lose shape. Like,
yeah.
my arms kind of lost shape. I didn't feel like I looked, like, very hourglass because, like, I had no hips, I had no boob. I just looked like kind of like
straight up and down.
Yeah, I was like, where's my waist kind of thing. And it's not that it bothered me that much. And but I remember, like, Sydney came into our room after I showered, and I, like, just had a towel on, and my entire back, I, like, looked in the mirror after she made a comment, and it was just, like, I could see every single bone and all the ribs, and they were, like, so much more, like, prominent than I had thought.
Oh my gosh.
Because you never see yourself from the back, so,
you
like,
don't.
Even if you consistently look at yourself from the front, and you feel like, oh, like, I'm pretty thin, you kind of, like, are used to it in a way. And then I, like, looked at my back.
Because you, like, get it gradually.
I was like, I need to maybe eat a little bit more. This
reminds me, I don't know if you remember this. It was right before our second New York Fashion Week, like, kind of my worst. And, like, I took a video of it because I was, like, recording a vlog. And I asked you to, like, come put, like, we were doing self-tanner. And I asked you to put self-tanner on my back. Mm-hmm. And I was, like, scared to ask you because I didn't know what my back looked like, but I knew it was going to be, like, scary to see. And I was like, I wonder what I remember being like, I wonder what she's thinking. I wonder if she's freaking out. Because I watched the video back, and it's like, so I hate looking at it. And I hate looking at pictures from my second New York Fashion Week. Yeah. They're just scary. But, like, do you remember that?
No.
Oh.
I mean, vaguely. It wasn't. I think I, like, already knew what you looked like, because at all the fashion weeks, we just, like, change and share hotels and stuff like that. It's definitely jarring to see. But I definitely have felt on the other end, too, and I've never been that big, and I've never been above, like, what would be called a healthy weight.
Right.
But I've definitely felt insecure, and so much. But I've also, even at my highest weight there, I felt really confident in a lot of it because I, like, never really had boobs. So, like, gaining, like 20 pounds from, you know, like, high school, I was like, well, I kind of, like, have a nice shape.
That's so cool to hear.
I have, like, some boobs, and I still had, like, kind of, like, an hourglass a little bit, but sometimes I think it's like trying on, like, old clothes or, like, a size that you thought you were, and then you just feel like you're, like, popping out of it, or it could just be bad days, like, because even now, like, if I think, like, me at my, like, heaviest versus, like, now, like, I might still feel like the same insecurities that I might felt there, even though, like, you know what I mean? It's just...
I do know what you mean. And what's weird is I feel the same, even though my heaviest is a lot heavier than yours, and, like, I'm still, like, I don't know. I'm just for reference, I'm a 00, and I'm 5'11", so I'm very small objectively.
Right.
But I still, and I think I didn't always weigh myself, but I think I've been, like, well over 200 pounds, and I still feel like today I still kind of felt like that. Like, I felt like that girl who was like, I kind of, like, was like, oh, are people, like, looking at me out in public and, like, whispering that, like, I'm, like, fat? Like, those are, like, thoughts that, like, went through my head today.
Right.
Which is odd. Because I know it objectively that I'm, like, not. And I know nobody thinks that, but it can still feel like that. Which I don't know. I think it almost is like how much I ate that day, even though obviously that's not going to change my body. Like, I'm like, oh, now I'm fat. I don't know. But that's just so ridiculous.
Yeah. It just goes along with kind of body image is just kind of this weird thing because you see yourself every day and you live in your skin every single day. So you don't get to, like, take a break and come back and be like, whoa, I look good. I'm actually pretty skinny.
I know.
Or I'm like, have a good shape.
What I would give to just, like, switch bodies with a person for, like, one day.
Just, like, not see
just
yourself.
Get out of it.
And then, like, be like, whoa, you know?
Yeah.
It's also, like, hard to see the subtle changes of your body as it happens to you when you see it little by little every single day, every single second. I mean, really. Maybe not every second, but you're in your skin, like, you know what I mean? Like, you see parts of yourself. It's not like all of a sudden you turn around and it's like, wow.
Yeah. And sometimes I don't know if you get this. Sometimes I feel, like, really, like, aggressively in my body, like, to, like, the point it's uncomfortable. Like, and it's not, like, an uncomfortable sensation, like, I'm in pain, but it is, like, I feel like I just want to, like, tear my, like, meat suit off and, like, escape. Like, I just feel, like, really tied down a lot. Like, oh, like, I don't really even know how to describe it, but I'm just like, oh, I just, like, feel my body so much. I, like, feel, like, every, like, part of it, like, weighing me down.
Mm-hmm. I can't say that I feel the same.
Yeah.
But I can only imagine.
Yeah.
I've always felt like I feel pretty comfortable and feel like I am pretty lucky to have the body that I have. I don't know, it seems kind of weird. I just hear, like, a lot of people complain about their bodies, and then it's not that I don't have, like, complaints or, like, things that, like, maybe I would change, but just for, like, so long of my life I always felt like it's always, like, so possible to change. Like, if I didn't like something, like, I could just work out on it. You know what I mean? It's also because I think because I was an athlete, and I was always, kind of relating back to health, I was always kind of health conscious.
Yeah. I remember you always, as a kid and us growing up, I always, like, was, like, jealous of your body. I don't really remember a time where I wasn't very, like, I was not aware of my body. I always felt really big. I felt like, and then, like, it's like I, like, would lose weight really fast, and especially, like, looking back at pictures, but I just couldn't tell, so I didn't have that mindset of, like, oh, it's okay, like, I can just, like, lose weight fast and, like, easily. Like, somebody else would always have to tell me. Like, I would never be able to tell if I lost weight. And people are like, might be like, oh, like, what about, like, your clothes, or like the scale. I was afraid of the scale. I didn't weigh myself, and my clothes, like, even to this day, I'm like I'm, like, afraid of jeans. Because I just have, like, trauma from it, of, like, the size of, like, my jeans, which is, like, weird. It's, like, weird, because it's, like, oh, you're, like, a runway model. Like, they just throw you in their clothes.
Yeah.
But it's almost different. I don't know.
I had a little bit of a different experience. Like, for me, when I started wearing, like, junior clothes or teenage clothes or more adult clothes, I didn't know, like, what the sizes were, so mom would just be like, try on this and this, and then she'd be like, you're a 27 or whatever.
Right.
And then I'd just be like, okay, like, that's my size, like, cool.
Got it.
Like, I didn't really have anywhere to, like, compare it to, also because the only person I really could compare to that I, like, shopped with that was around my size was Sydney, and we were basically the same size for most of middle school and high school.
Yeah.
And even though I'm younger, we were just, like, kind of the same size. And I grew, like, a little bit more than her. So we were, like, our heights were really close for a long time. And our weights were super close for a long time. And I remember, like, going to the doctors. And we were both getting physicals. But they just took us together because we were sisters. And we both got weighed in front of each other. We weighed the exact same weight. And so, like, it always just felt like, my sister looks good, so I must look good. Like, it just felt like I was, like, right in the range of, like, where I was supposed to be, I guess.
I definitely felt very other, like, growing up from you, too, because it was, like, that's Peyton and Sydney, and then it's, like, the fat little sister. Or it's, like, also, I was just super tall always. Like, I had hit 5'9" by the time I was, like, 11 years old. Mm-hmm. So I was just, like, super big. I was always just chubbier than you guys. I don't know why that is. I think I don't know. But I won't get into it now. But I do remember, like, mom having to, like, talk me down a lot in, like, changing rooms, and I'm like, I'm not Peyton and Sydney's size, and she's like, well, you're a lot taller than them. And then I just kind of was like, that just sounds like a lame excuse. Like, the older I got, I was like, that is just, like, that's not a valid excuse. But it's not an excuse, and you don't need an excuse to be a bigger size.
Yeah. No, totally. But going back to health anxiety, I feel like this is, like, a whole other can of worms for me. And I feel like I might teeter more so on this side, maybe more than you.
Yeah.
Because I would say one of my biggest fears is disease. And one of my biggest fears is sexual diseases. And I've always, like, tried to take really, like, big precautions on that. And I've just always felt so worried. Even as a kid, I had, like, a lot of anxiety and a lot of worry. And they would always call me, like, worrywart. Because, like, I'd be like, oh, but, like, what about, like, this or that? Or, like, even, like, down to, like, the stuff on, like, fruits and vegetables. When I was a kid, I used to wash it with soap and water. And then mom told me, you don't have to wash it with soap. You don't want to wash it with soap.
Wow.
Because, like, I don't know, it just, like, felt like everything was, like, germs and everything could give you diseases and you could, like, contract things. And then when I learned about sexual diseases, when we had, like, sex talks in class, I was, like, and, like, hearing that things are unreversible and there's no cure freaked me out. Like, I was like, I can never, like, I can't deal with that. Like, it just, that's definitely, like, one of my biggest fears. Whenever someone asks me to fears and I get down to it, it's always right there.
That's crazy.
But I try not to, like, let it, like, ruin my life now. I feel like I was a pretty anxious kid, or at least, like, a very, like, thoughty kid. Like, I was...
I was thoughty as well.
No, not like
No,
that.
in the sense of THOUGH.
Yeah,
I
just, like,
was an anxious kid as well, but not relating to health, no.
I thought a lot about it. A lot about it.
I didn't know that. I didn't know you were so...
Yeah.
Always so scared. Like, but...
It's because it's, like, one of those things where, like, when you have a fear, you don't want to talk about it because you don't want people to know your fear.
Yeah, that's true.
But I feel like I've conquered it enough.
It's almost counterintuitive, though. Like, because that's your instinct, I think, is to, like, for everyone, to, like, not talk about their fear. But if you talk about it, you might just... I think a lot of times you'll come to realize it's not as bad as maybe you thought.
Yeah, well, here's the other thing. With most of my fears, I've always had this mentality of, like, you can just learn more about it, and it's not as scary. Like, with sharks. Like, I was kind of scared of sharks for a while as a kid, so I researched them. And I was
You're
young.
a nerd.
Yeah, I was probably in 2nd grade. So I, like, go on my, the computer, our family computer, sharks, and I read everything I could about sharks and why they were so scary and what their teeth were and, like, why they would attack you, and they don't like the taste of humans, so they wouldn't just attack you. They're just territorial. You stay out of their territory. Sometimes they attack surfers because they look like penguins or whatever, a bird that they would eat, a fish that they would eat. And so I, like, learned more about them and I conquered my fear. And I would do this with so many things, but the thing about health, when you look up health, when you look up what is this lump, bump, cough, discoloration, anything, you look it up and it's this list of
like the worst things.
Boom, 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 boom.
And it's like,
boom.
contact your health provider immediately.
Yeah, if any of these are happening to you, if you have any of these other symptoms. And then I would, like, kind of be like, well, I was coughing the other day, like, when I choked on my broccoli. Oh, no. Like, and then it just goes on and on in your head, and there is no real cure to so many things. And then it's really hard to, like, get into that finding a cure. And there's medicine to mask it, but that's not curing it. And then it's like people can live with it and battle it, or, like, this is terminal. And it's just, wow, does it cause so much anxiety. And
so, can I ask, what do you think the ultimate fear is with, like, your disease? So, is, like, the ultimate fear of, like, oh, if I have this disease, I'm going to die young? Or is it, like, living in pain? Or, like, what do you think? Or have you not thought about that, really?
I've thought about it a little bit, and I think, like, I just, like, would hate to deteriorate, to be weak. But also, another thing, I think, mainly diseases, and then going into, like, sexual diseases, I feel like I would feel, like, unlovable and, like, so unclean. And, like, to a partner, I feel like having, like, a sexual disease and having that conversation would be really difficult and hard. And also, like, I remember just, like, even having a first crush or a first boyfriend and then, like, talking about, like, their past exes, and then, like, to have to tell a story about how you, like, contracted a disease or, like, however that may come about also just seems, like, so shameful. I think, like, there's a big shame in sexual diseases.
Yeah. That's Oh, man. I never even thought about this.
Wow, really?
I've never ever been worried about, like, even, like, oral herpes.
Mm-hmm.
Oral herpes always did freak me out.
Mm-hmm.
I never wanted to use anybody's chapstick, and I never wanted to kiss anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was like, oh, like, what if... And I remember, like, before, like, when not my first kiss, but, like, I kissed a boy in high school who was in my drama class. And not first scene. But I think first scene I would have done the same. I was like, oh, like, you don't have herpes, do you? Like, right before we kiss. Like, mood killer, but, like, that was definitely, like, an important thing
I know, but
for me to know.
People can lie about that.
I know. That's what freaked me out. And I remember, like, always checking, like, if people had cuts. I would get freaked out if I had cuts on my mouth. And if I had a cut on my mouth, like, I don't care if, like, Henry Cavill was, like, walking through my door and, like, asking for a kiss. I was not gonna kiss anyone.
Yeah.
But I never thought about sexual diseases. Because I guess I just never thought about sex that much.
Yeah.
But you would have kind of freaked me out because like, if you ever heard, like, I don't know if you told me actually, but like the public restroom, like, oh, sexual diseases can live on the toilet seat and like jump into you.
Yeah.
That used to freak me out. But I heard that's not real.
Well, so I've done a lot of research into this, and it's basically no one ever contracts it like that. But
oh gosh,
if there's a very small window that diseases can live on an inanimate object, that if it touched you fast enough, like if it, like, the toilet seat was still warm and it, like, you went, like, right on it, it can, like, actually happen. Or even, like, sharing underwear, sharing stuff like that.
Ooh, that's pretty.
That's why, like, if, like,
nasty.
someone puts on chapstick and you put it on right after, it can cause it. But the thing about, like, oral herpes is most people come into contact with it when they're a baby, and you're just able to fight it off.
Oh.
So your body just, that's, like, something that's helped me conquer this fear a little bit, is that if your body is healthy enough, you can just fight it off. But I don't want this to get into this, like, health,
like,
mentality
I need to be 100%
like,
healthy.
I only need to eat, like, absolutely optimal broccoli and then, like, protein, absolutely, like, no
edamame
sugar.
beans.
Yeah, exactly.
Every day.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely I can definitely see it, like, how you... I've definitely gone in that train of thought, too.
Mm-hmm.
But not, like, due to, like, diseases. It was... Or, like, more just, like, I need to be, like, functioning... Like, to justify eating, I need to be eating, like, the most... yeah, exactly, the most optimal diet to like justify it. Like, it's like, oh, if you're really doing this for your health, then you'll eat only clean, like only 100% exactly what you need, but
only fruits, vegetable, and then, like, the most
clean protein. Yeah,
all organic.
Exactly. But that's just, like, guys, like, your body's, like, not...
Your body can handle it.
Yeah. As much as, like, your body's a machine, as people would like to say, it's, like, a very resilient machine.
A very intelligent machine. Mm-hmm. And your body tells you things as well.
Yeah. Yes. It's hard. That's definitely something I've been trying to work on, is, like, getting in tune with it after, like, I felt like I was trying to, like, literally escape it for so long and, like, ignore it. And I remember, like, having thoughts of, like, I'm gonna purposely, like, mess up my, like, hunger signals so that I don't feel hungry anymore.
Yeah.
But that comes back to bite you in the ass so hard. Don't ever do that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Because I just wanted to feel, like, above my body. Like, I wanted to feel like I was, like, transcending it and, like, I was in control and not, like, this, like, primal animalistic, like, urge of hunger, I was like, no, I'm above that. Because I think it was also, like, almost, like, a spiritual thing. Because I was, like, watching a lot of, like, spiritual people and, like, monks and stuff talking about, like, fasting and, like, mind over body, you know, mind over matter. And, like, that became, like, a big obsession for me.
It also can be worrisome because you can, now with the internet, you can look up anything and you can find something that's going to confirm what you want to hear.
Oh, yeah. But then also, you're also going to hear the exact opposite thing. Yeah. For me, it's like I hear on my social media feed, I feel like I'm, like, force-fed, like, every contradicting thing about, like, diet and health. And then I feel like my whole day, like, they're just, like, a battle, like, screaming in my head. And if I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I'm hungry, like, what should I eat? And it's like a million different things are, like, yelling at me. It's like oh, like, maybe, like, a banana. It's like banana, like, all sugar, like, all carbs, like, blah, 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 blah. And then it's just like, it's like that, you know, with every choice that you could think of, pretty much. But yeah, that's, like, I think the most difficult, because it kind of feels like you're at war with your mind, or, like, your head's just, like, so loud. But I've always kind of felt like that, but it's just kind of taken up by a new space now.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever, like, have shared that sentiment, or, like, kind of felt, because I don't really feel clarity on, like, this is, or it's rare that I'll feel clarity on, like, this is, like, a good food.
Broccoli.
Right, broccoli.
Broccoli's my go-to good food.
But it's like, do you feel like kind of like, I don't think, like, when you're like, oh, like, I'm hungry, what am I gonna eat? It's not like, is it, like, mentally taxing? Or, like, I would just like to hear, like, what goes through your head.
It's different depending on the state that I'm in, I feel like. So that's kind of why I like to have some kind of diet plan or a kind of go-to. So, but, like, given a certain amount of flexibility. So, like, just in general of any state, I would say I'm usually have a go-to meal that I'll probably eat every day or every other day, whether that's, like, yogurt or, like, chia seed pudding, usually breakfast or lunch or whatever. So, like, yogurt, chia seed pudding, or, like, a smoothie bowl, depending on the season or something, or, like, oatmeal. And I feel like those are really good. Like, they'll just, like, if I'm, like, start to get hungry, I'm like, oh, like, that's what I'll make, because, like, that's kind of what I always make, or some version of that. And then lunch is kind of, I, like, kind of, like, think about it more, or, like, someone else is eating something, and if that sounds good, I'll eat that. And then if not, then I'll say, like, I usually go to the fridge and say, like, what do we have in here? I don't, like, think about, like, I need to get in protein in this. And, like, sometimes I, like, will have, like, a little thought of, like, maybe I should make this more protein centered. But I'll usually look in the fridge and say, like, oh, like, either that sounds good, or I have an idea of, like, this ingredient and this ingredient. And sometimes it's, like, fun to, like, cook it. And then if we're, like, really dry in the house, I'll be like, I need to get creative. So I'll, like, look through every single thing, all the cans, all the ingredients, all the dry pasta and stuff like that. And then dinner is usually after lunch, I'll have, like, a better idea of something that I should have eaten, and then I'll usually make that for dinner.
Wow, that's so crazy to hear, actually.
But if I feel like it's, like, right before, like, fashion week, usually I need a plan. I'm a planner.
Yes.
So, like, a week before, I'll either be like, okay, I'm going to do, like, an all juice cleanse. So I feel, like, really healthy, really fleshed out, really hydrated, and I'm getting all my vitamins. But I am also, like, cutting down.
Yep.
And then if I know that I'm on that, then I'll usually be like, okay, I'll like kind of have a plan. Or like sometimes when I feel like I've just kind of been really lazy and just like snacking instead of like creating a meal, because like if I just wait till I get really hungry and haven't thought about it, and then I just like grab chips or crackers or whatever, then I don't feel as good. And then I'll start to think, okay, like what can I do to, like make my life easier that I can get up and grab a snack.
Yeah.
And not feel like I just only had chips for a meal. And that's usually when I like prep something for the fridge, or like I'll write down like in my planner, like this is like a good meal idea, or maybe I'll get like inspiration on Pinterest for like a salad that like would be a really good combination. And then I can kind of like mentally prep it, even if it has to be prepped right before you eat it.
That's really interesting to hear.
Really?
Because, well,
I don't feel like that's very interesting.
it might sound very mundane to a normal person, but I remember I was just like for so long so curious. I'm like, what does everyone else think? Mm-hmm. How does everyone else just like eat like a new thing every day? And they're not even like, how many calories is in this? Or like, what is this going to do to my body? Or like, is this a new ingredient? And I think I still like kind of struggle like to like be like, it's almost like a form of self-care to be like, this is like a full meal I'm going to make for myself, and then like let myself eat it. Because like for me, it's like, I like will wait till I get like super hungry and I just like can't ignore it anymore. And then it's like, okay, well, it's like you can like cook up vegetables or like, but like I'm like, it's hard to like eat like a protein that's like, unless I'm like really desperate for it. It's like I won't like allow myself to like have like a big like flavor combination and like all this stuff in once, because I'm just like, well, you could just eat it separately. I don't know. Does that make sense, or is that making any sense? It's just kind of like a restriction of like, you don't
need to eat it all in one time. You need to like spread it out to make it feel like
more. And it's like, oh, do you really need that? Like, eat this first, and then it's like, do you still need that? Like, yeah. And it's just kind of like, you're not like taking care of yourself. You're not like allowing yourself and like caring enough for yourself to be like, you can have like a full meal. You don't need to like only like live off of like the smallest like bites you can manage.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I think I've felt maybe to an extent, very small extent, like when I was losing weight, and then it kind of becomes a habit after a few months of losing weight, and then when you're like tracking calories, then you start to like think about calories every single meal. Yeah. And then like when I stopped tracking calories because I didn't need to lose any more weight, it kind of took me a while to get back into that and to feel like, oh, like you can satiate your hunger completely. Yeah. Instead of, like you have to be like, because like when you're losing weight, you're usually a little bit hungry before bed or whatever it is, like a little bit hungry, like you're just a little bit hungrier because you're in a deficit. Yeah. But I don't think it affected me too far in an extent. It took me a while to like get out of it and kind of be like, oh, like it's okay and like it'll even out, but not to too much of an extreme. It is like, it feels so weird though, putting on weight instead of losing it. It feels like going backwards, no matter. Yeah, because like I was at the point where I was scared to look at myself in the mirror.
I was scared to look at my own self in the mirror. And still putting on weight felt like a failure or going backwards, which is just, like, so crazy.
Do you think that's, like, a social construct? Or
I think it might be. I think it's just, like, really deeply ingrained in me personally because I know guys, like, and girls, too, well, like, they're like, I'm going on a bulk. I'm putting on muscle, and this is, like, my form of progress right now. And that's normal for them.
Yeah. That's true.
But it's
also, like, you have, like, a reward center in your brain, and I feel like food can be such a strong one, or seeing yourself in the mirror, or, like, you know what I mean, like, the reward of, like, seeing a lower number on a scale, or, like, eating a healthy food feels like a reward center of, you know, like, this food, this weight loss, seeing yourself in the mirror, and then it's like, oh, like, it's such a pleasurable reward that to, like, go backwards in the other direction is, like, a hard, like, 180.
Yeah, it's like a skirt.
It's like, wait, but we were getting so much reward from doing it the other way. Why would we do it
this way
in reverse?
And it's, yeah, what's also interesting is, like, food itself, or, like, eating is reward, like, it'll, like, release dopamine, or you know,
exactly, yeah.
But for me, it's, like, very, like, I heard this on the Andrew Huberman podcast, was like, a lot of people feel anxious before they eat because it's just like almost like a natural body or like a bodily function of like, I don't know, like almost like a rush of excitement. But yeah, eating definitely like makes me feel very anxious, and I don't think it releases like the same sort of like it does to an extent, but it's like, it doesn't feel like, I don't know if anybody else feels like this, but it's like after you eat, do you feel like a huge like crash in dopamine, or is that just like a bad eating disorder thing?
A crash in dopamine?
Like, I just like feel like, oh, like so bad, like, oh no, like this huge thing of like, oh gosh, like what was that?
Oh, I kind of understand that, like, to an extent. Also, because I feel like when you're, like, living off of a fasted stomach in the morning, and then if I do that, I like to have, like, a smaller meal and then, like, work into a larger meal later in the day. Because if I have gone, like, to sleep, so you're in, like, fasting mode and you wake up, and then you have a big meal, I definitely feel like, oh, like, it feels like,
yeah,
it feels
I definitely,
like a weight.
I
feel so weighed down.
Yeah, I feel like definitely a little more lively if I'm a little bit hungry. But it's also, like, can get really annoying really fast. Because it's almost like, I wish there was an in-between where I didn't feel, like, super full or super hungry.
Right.
Which is
hard for you to feel.
Yeah, it's hard to find a little bit.
Okay, let's talk more about health anxiety and how this anxiety can actually impact your health right after this small break. And we are back talking about health anxiety and body image. I think the catch-22 of anxiety being a huge health risk, or stress being a huge health.
Like, I've heard stress is the number one, like, worst thing for your body.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And then if you have health anxiety, it kind of just amps it up, but then you're like, I can't because my health. Yeah,
and it's like almost, it's very difficult to get out of a cycle of that catch-22 of having anxiety about your anxiety.
It's kind of similar because I have anxiety about smoking.
Mm-hmm.
And if I think back, I feel like since I started smoking, I had definitely a decline in health. Like, I would just get sick a little bit more often. And I'm not unhealthy, but it's a huge anxiety of mine. And then, but stressing can be coped by smoking, and it's kind of another one of those like catch 22s.
Yeah, it's that momentary release of I don't feel stressed after I, take a drag.
Right. And it kind of makes me feel guilty. And then I feel like, oh, I need to up my health and other things to counteract it. And then you just kind of stress about it more. Are you a germaphobe?
Definitely not.
Definitely not.
Definitely not. I don't ever think about germs. I never have. And then also, like, the more I learned about germs, the less I was a germaphobe.
Right.
Because I was like, oh, I've never been a germaphobe. I've always exposed myself to germs, which makes me more immune. That's my thought process.
Right.
If food drops on the floor, I'll still eat it. I'll be like, that's good for me to face this a little bit of germ adversity. She's biting her nails as I say this. She doesn't like this thought.
Ooh, it's good for your microbiome.
It's good for your microbiome. And I'm just like, dude, the more germs I face, like, the stronger I am. So I'm like, load me up.
I feel like I am mildly a germaphobe. I had more anxiety about germs maybe like at certain points of my life, and then definitely during COVID. It kind of was a...
Wow, really?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people share that. I think a lot of people feel like that. I was never afraid. I was never afraid of like catching a cold, and I never was afraid of getting COVID, which I know is a privilege, because I wasn't like immune compromised or anything like that.
Yeah. Well, another thing, even growing up, I don't like having my hands dirty. I like them to feel very nice and clean. And I like, to the point where I wouldn't like to hold the takeout food because I didn't like the heat and grease that felt like it was transferring onto my hands. And I don't like to touch doorknobs, and I like to wipe them down.
That's a habit I picked up from you. I don't touch bathroom doorknobs anymore, but it was just because I watched you always like take the paper towel and like...
Yeah, I hate that feeling.
And
of, like,
always,
having it on my hands.
I mean, I don't like feeling dirty. I've never been a germaphobe, but I hate feeling dirty. I used to shower. There was a point in my life where I was showering like 4 times, 5 times a day. Because I hated it. I just like always felt dirty. But I don't know why that is. I never was like a germ thing. But yeah. I hate my hands feeling sticky. That's like my thing.
I don't like that either.
Or greasy, but I don't. It was never a germ thing.
I hate like also feeling like I have stuff under my nails. And I think that's where like the habit of like picking at my nails, and I know people hate when I do that, but I hate feeling like there's something under there, so I will always like try to clean it out.
Oh yeah, that's like, I hate that sound. I hate the sound of you picking at your nails. That's like my thing.
I know, it's really bad, but I'm also just like one of those people who like kind of like jitter and like tap my pencil on the desk and tap my foot.
Yeah, I feel like I'm one of those people too.
I remember being told, like, can you stop tapping your pencil?
Always when my mom would tell me, yeah, stop pacing. Why are you pacing? You're making me nervous.
Yeah. Oh, man. Back to health, though. Health is, like, one of those things that you just can't really describe in a good detail, because health is different. Health is relative to everyone.
It's true. And also, like...
And what is good health? Is good health just being able to survive? Not my opinion.
What's your definition of good health?
I can kind of paint a picture of good health. I think eating ample, like, fruits and vegetables. I think those are my, like, number ones. Your body can reflect your health. I don't like your face can reflect a lot. So, like, I really, like, feel like being healthy for me is also, like, being, like, having clear skin and glowing skin. And that's also why I hate things on my hands, because then I feel like if it's anywhere near my face, like, I just really don't like that. I feel like it's gonna, like, cause acne. But also, like, overwashing your face can cause acne. But you don't want all that dirt and bacteria and grime on it. But, yeah. And then also, I think being active, even if I'm eating really healthy, I think that you have to be somewhat physically active to really be healthy. And I like to be in this group of, like, the 1% that's, like, super, super healthy. Like, that's what I strive to be in. Like, eating all, like, organic and greens and getting the right amount of protein, exercising an hour, 45 minutes to an hour a day, preferably in the morning. And I've always been kind of, like, an exercise nut. Like, I was always in sports. And then even, I think it was in middle school, I started jogging every single morning, or making sure... And, like, I would do, like, make sure I did the most sit-ups in PE class. And I would do them, like, on my own time. I was, like, a huge sit-up person for a long time.
Yeah. It hasn't been until literally these last 4 months, I think, that I've ever looked at exercise as something of, like, I need this to feel good. It makes me feel better and in a better headspace, and I like doing it. Exercise before that always was like weight loss and punishment. I never was like felt like joy in doing it. I remember like walking. It was like I was like taxed by walking. I was like, I hate walking. Like, it's a punish. Like, but that was when I was quite young. But yeah, but it's a really big luxury, in my opinion, to be able to, like, view exercise. And I was never, like, an over exerciser. Like, that was never a part of my eating disorder or anything like that. But it's a really big luxury to, like, view exercise as, like, something that is, like, I never thought I'd be one of those people, but, like, it is, like, a form of therapy, and it is, like, a joy, a genuine joy in my life. And that is, like, such a privilege. And, like, I'm so, like, proud of myself to, like, be able to, like, genuinely say that and mean that.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that, actually.
So, but was when you were, like, doing that, when you were, like, oh, I need to do, like, the most sit-ups in PE in, like, 4th grade, I think it was.
Yeah, it was 4th
like,
grade.
Was it, like, competitiveness? Was it about health, or was it...
Oh, it was definitely competitiveness. But I also just felt like, oh, like, if I'm healthy and I'm strong, I'll do them. And I like to push myself a little bit to the limits to have that, like,
that's
healthy stressor.
So your ultimate goal was always, like, you wanted to, like, prove to yourself, like, I'm healthy and strong.
Yeah.
Which is, yeah. But for me, it was, like, for a big chunk of my life, like, I wanted to prove to myself, like, I was, like, sick enough. Which is, like, it's, like, so...
Opposite.
It's opposite, but it's, like, more alike than maybe some people would think. Because we would...
Two sides of one coin?
Two sides of one coin. Because we would do, like, I think, like, maybe for that, like, period of time when we were, like, dieting together, like, your goal was probably, I want to be healthy and strong, and my goal was probably, like, I want to be sick, but we were still, like, eating the same diet.
Right.
Which is, like, really interesting to me.
Yeah. I also felt like the optimal healthy weight was, like, it's at the lower of the healthy spectrum.
Right.
Because I felt like, even though, like, I was healthy at my heaviest, I've always felt a little more tired.
Right. That's interesting, though. I almost feel like it's different for everyone. I feel like...
It wasn't optimal for me.
Yeah. I know women who are, like, a little bit overweight or at the higher end of healthy weight are generally more fertile. So I think that can be, like, healthier for a lot of women.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, fertility is, like, a huge sign of health to me.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, just going off of that, another health anxiety that I started having was I was on birth control for a few years. Quite a few years, actually. And I learned just more about it and how it affects your health long term. And so I got off of it. I was like, I don't need to be on it anyway. And then I ended up having a lot of those adverse effects that can happen. And I've been trying to combat that for a long time. Like, I never was really one to get more than, like, 1 or 2 pimples. And then right after I got off it, I was having really bad breakouts. And I don't have them as bad today, but definitely not as much as I feel like I would have if I never did it. And I definitely have some cycle like mishaps, I guess, that just...
To this day?
Yeah, to this day.
Wow.
And it's a lot better than right when I got off of it, but it's been something that I've been trying to still... That was a big...
It changes your brain chemistry, too, huh? A little bit?
I think so. And it just messes up your hormones, and I'm still trying to just get them right on track, and it can be really hard.
That reminds me, it's like I said a lot, like, oh, I didn't really ever have health anxiety, but now I'm remembering as a kid and, like, an adolescent, I was very, like, that's not natural. Like, I didn't like things that were, like, that isn't natural. So, like, I would never consider birth control a lot. I was, like, kind of scared of, like, SPF for a long time because I'm like, that's not natural. And I remember when I got my ears pierced, all the, like, blood rushed to it, and our dad told me, you know, like, that's your body trying to, like, heal that wound. And that just freaked me out so much that I, like, took him out, and I was like, it just needs to heal because that's not natural. It's not natural for like to force a wound in your body.
Yeah.
I would have, like, body anxiety, not in the body image sense. I would have that too, but in the sense of, like, just feeling like I hated thinking about veins and, like, nerves and, like, things like that, and I didn't like to think about it all being in me. That really freaked me out. So I didn't like to do things that were unnatural or would cause my body to be like, we need to heal this, or, like, bring, like, forward, like, blood. Not that I wasn't afraid of seeing blood or anything or squeamish around it, but I didn't like the look of, like a wound trying to heal or anything like that.
Oh, that wasn't really me. I was actually like if something was healing, I was, like, so infatuated. Mm-hmm. I remember when I cut open my ankle as a kid, and it was, like, to the tendon.
Oh!
And I was, like, looking at it, and I was like, it's white down there.
Oh, no!
I just remember, like, kind of, like, you know, like, checking it out, poking around and stuff like that.
Oh, my gosh. That is so... Yeah. I don't like bodies. Like, I don't like the, like... Oh, I hated looking at, like, nervous systems and, like, biology class was like, no.
I loved biology class.
I don't like to think about how things are, like, doing in my body, like, how things are working. Oh, I get anxiety just, like, feeling my heartbeat. And I hate, like, the feeling of, like, feeling my heartbeat. And, like, or hearing other people's heartbeat. It's, like, too much for me. Even to this day, when people are like, oh, I, like, put my head on his chest and, like, I heard his heartbeat. I'm like, what the hell? Like, that would give me so much anxiety. Like, to hear, like, da-da, da-da, da-da. And it's like, oh, it's just, like, I guess this thought that your body's always, like, functioning so hard. And I'm like, I don't want to think about that. Like, my poor body, like, it never rests.
No. But it's always, like, regenerating as well. I feel like another thing about my health anxiety is I always want to feel like I'm kind of, like, combating age and helping my body do that the best it can, and kind of trying to, like, reverse age rather than go forward.
Yes.
I've
always had a big fear of aging.
Yeah, aging seems unnatural, actually.
Yeah?
To me, it feels unnatural. And, like, even I remember hearing the song Forever Young when I was in elementary school. And I was like, wait a second. I'm not going to be forever young? Like, that's, like, kind of, like, this was, like, this big thought about. And I was like, no. Like, I'm going to be young always.
Wow. Yeah.
Like, I was like, aging's not for me.
I remember a period in my life where it was, like, so, the thought of aging was so consuming to me. And, like, I would, like, check every day if I could see, when I raised my eyebrows, if my, like, wrinkles were getting deeper. I was, like, scared of raising my eyebrows.
That reminds me of something.
Oh, we should get Botox?
Okay, yeah. I actually was, so that's something about, like, body image and health anxiety that, like, is so contradictory for me, because I'm like, oh, I want to, like, look pretty.
Yeah.
And, like, I would like Botox, and I like the idea of, like,
But it's a
Botox.
toxin you're pumping into your body.
And then it's like, wait, my body's not gonna like that, and that's not natural. Shouldn't I do this, like, a natural, healthy way to keep me young and youthful and, like, looking good? And how can I just, like, exercise my face in order to have, like, a natural lift and without getting wrinkles? Or, you know, like, how can I even combat that? That's, like, kind of, like, my thoughts, and then they chase each other, and it's like, but don't you want to look good? And, like, that's kind of another thing, like, when I was trying to lose weight and smoking helps keep your appetite down. It's like, oh, like,
don't do that, by the way, because if you ever try to quit,
it's really hard.
You're gonna be hungrier too if you're trying to do it for weight loss. You're gonna be super hungry.
It's a really bad cycle. Yeah, and then it's kind of like chasing each other around. It's like, oh, like the health anxiety, but the body image. Those are two things that just, they keep that wheel running because they just keep chasing each other around it.
I think the way I dealt with my fear of aging was not trying to combat it. It was like, I just need to be, like, captured in my youthful state, like, in a film, like that was my thought process. And then I
actually had that exact thought before.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do. Like, they want to, or, like, not more like just being like, remembered after death. It's like, oh, if I'm famous, then I don't have to worry about that. Like, kind of this eternal life in a sense. But yeah, I was just like, I remember always being like, well, I just need, like, one really classic movie that everyone can watch me when I was at my young and beautiful, and then I won't have to worry about it. But that's
probably not gonna work.
That's just not the case. All these things that I was like, if I X, Y, and Z, then I won't have to worry about it. That never really happened. I think I just have an anxiety problem.
We're always chasing these kind of goals that aren't really fulfilling the whole that needs fulfilled.
Yeah. That's like a really deep question. That's like a whole nother podcast question, because it's like, what's the whole? Because like nothing's really satiating it.
Right. Okay, well, I guess we can talk about that next week or some other week or maybe never.
Join us next time when we talk about the presidential campaign of Robert Kennedy.
Thank you guys for listening, and we will see you next week.